Welcome to Miami. Bienvenido a Miami. Bouncing in the club with the heat is on all night on the beach till the break of dawn. I'm going to Miami. Welcome to Miami.
Hey, welcome to Half the Battle. You know, it's about time that we got back to the comic and continued the Doctor Venom story arc. So that means it's time for another recap.
Previously in the G.I. Joe comic, Doctor Venom, evil and/or mad scientist, Quinn the Eskimo mercenary, and Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe's equivalent of Goku, were trapped in a sunken bunker and about to die. They managed to escape, but Venom clocks Quinn on the head, so the Eskimo presumably drowned. Once they surface, they are confronted by a bunch of Cobra troops, who were just hanging out there for some reason.
So, is Quinn really dead?
No, he isn't, because he's right there on the damn cover.
Way to keep people in suspense there, comic.
It is a promising-looking cover, though. Venom is being his usual lovable self as he tries to kill Snake Eyes. Again. Dude, get a new hobby. The comic itself starts, somewhere in the middle of the last comic. No, seriously, Venom is back to pathetically begging for his life while the Cobra Goons decide whether or not to kill them. Something that was already decided last issue.
There's a reason for this, though. We're getting our first retcon.
You see, in the last issue, the Cobras didn't kill them because they didn't want to drag the bodies all the way to the airfield, since Cobra Commander would want proof of their deaths. And while this is still true, they add a reason to keep Venom alive, namely that he's the only one that can fly the plane to get them out of there. Just as they're finishing this discussion, all of a sudden...
Come on without, come on within. You will not see nothing like the mighty Quinn. Come on without, come on within. You will not see nothing like the mighty Quinn.
Quinn emerges from the water and makes short work of the goons. Snake Eyes takes this opportunity to once again choke a bitch. Or drown one anyway. Only for Quinn to remind him that they still need the guy to fly the plane. Yeah, I can understand the retcon, since there's no other way Venom would still be breathing at this point. After all, he's repeatedly tried to kill the other two. They get to the airfield easily enough, but wouldn't you know it, it's been taken over by revolutionaries. Because nothing is ever allowed to go Snake Eyes' way. They sneak aboard a bomber, a Lancaster bomber from World War II no less, and they prepare to take off. Now, incompetent though the revolutionaries are, even they notice a big-ass bomber attempting to take off, so the fight is on. Snake Eyes takes the gunner's position and destroys all other planes on the runway. That are all Spitfires, by the way, since we seem to be going for a motif here, so they won't be chased. The whole Spitfire shooting gallery delays them though, long enough in fact for the bad guys to set up a blockade at the end of the runway, making it too short, especially since one of the engines isn't working. Still, they do manage to take off, but lose their landing gear in the process. Oops. They get a chance to settle down on the plane, and Venom is allowed to study the flight manual, since he has to, keep flying the thing. But Quinn warns him that he's toast at the slightest hint of treachery. So, in the very next panel, we see the slightest hint of treachery, as Venom is sending Cobra a message in Morse code. Before he gets discovered and can get the beating he so richly deserves, the plane comes under attack from a Spitfire. Yeah, turns out there was one hiding in a hangar they didn't get to.
They managed to take out the Spitfire in a way that I think is pretty much impossible for that type of bomber. Or any bomber, really.
They go into a nosedive with the Spitfire on their tail, and then use their landing lights to blind him and pull up at the last second, causing the fighter to crater. I'll admit to knowing very little of the capabilities of British World War II era bombers, but yeah, I'm still gonna call bullcrap on that one. And with that, let's check on Cobra headquarters.
Yeah, there's a bit of switching locations in this issue too, but at least it's completely plot relevant, so I'm not gonna complain much.
Cobra has received Venom's Morse code message. He's told him he still has the catalyst for the new virus and will provide it if they give him a car and a lawyer once he reaches Miami. And the whole trying to kill you thing will just be water under the bridge. Dude is taking the whole getting blown up and almost drowning thing very, very well. That's Employee of the Month material right there, folks. Speaking of attempted homicide, back on the plane, Venom realizes he hasn't tried to kill Snake Eyes in literally hours, so he lures him into the bomb bay and opens the doors. When Quinn tries to help, he angles the plane up to throw the Eskimo out for good measure. While hanging onto the plane for dear life, with Venom standing over him and Snake Eyes grasping his feet, Quinn has finally decided that he's just about had all the crap he's gonna take and climbs back in, while Venom is beating on him with a wrench no less. This scene is glorious and one of Quinn's finest moments. Quinn succeeds and now wants to find out if a weasel can fly.
And I'm pretty sure the good doctor has just soiled himself.
No, I'm a sick person. I'm not responsible. And that last sound effect is, I'm pretty sure, the guy actually crapping himself. And this time, it's Snake Eyes that prevents Quinn from putting Venom out of their misery.
You know, I like that these guys have to take turns convincing each other to not kill the little pissant.
While Venom changes his underwear, let's check in with both G.I. Joe and Cobra headquarters. The Joes did discover something from the completely blown up Cobra hideout from last issue. Whatever they're up to, it involves ink. Printer's ink, and lots of it. Meanwhile, Cobra Commander has grown suspicious of Destro and has hired a new a new main character to deal with him. Major Blood. You may dispense with the formalities. I don't pay you to salute me.
Thank you! See, even Cobra Commander himself is getting sick of the damn Nazi salutes.
Meanwhile, the Baroness finds out about Destro setting up the commander, but won't betray him because they love each other. She won't betray the commander either, though. Oh my, how that will change later. Back with the bomber, we come across the lamest excuse for an action sequence I've ever seen. You see, they're flying towards a fishing boat. A fishing boat that happens to have smugglers on board. Now, you can tell by looking at these fellas that they're not exactly the brightest bunch, but still, how they react defies all logic. That bomber's heading straight for us. Somebody must have told the Coast Guard about that load of contraband in our hold. Yes, they see a World War II-era British bomber, and their first thought is Coast Guard.
Because the Coast Guard is so well known for their air fleet of bombers. These guys are made of stupid.
To illustrate this point, they open fire on the plane, hitting the fuel tanks, while the thing is flying directly overhead, meaning they get doused in fuel, which ignites due to the muzzle flashes, blowing them all to hell.
And nothing of value was lost.
Unfortunately, this means our three heroes, our two heroes and Venom, are running out of fuel and have to drop ballast just to glide to the Miami coast. So we see the bomber approaching Miami from the perspective of a retired couple, one of them being a World War II veteran who was among the first wave to hit Omaha Beach. He says how stupid he was back then, as he thought flying those Lancasters was extremely dangerous, while he himself was literally sitting on the landing raft waiting to storm the beach. Mind you, he is telling this story while the bomber is losing altitude and heading straight for them. And they calmly sit there as the bloody thing crashes right in front of them, only complaining they got sand in their drink.
I was gonna complain and make fun of this at first, but it's actually a great little homage on the writer's part.
After all, this is a comic, it's all make-believe, and the character of the veteran reacts as though he was reading a comic. He's unimpressed since, well, he's lived through the real thing. It's like the comic is saying, yeah, this is all fun guys, but remember the people that actually went through hell. Anyway, the bomber hits the beach with literally all the police already waiting for them. So that approach must have taken a really long time, or the Miami PD is really on the ball. They are all taken into custody, but Dr. Venom already has a Cobra lawyer waiting for him. The lawyer produces a writ of habeas corpus, securing the doctor's release.
You know, I may not be a fancy big city lawyer, but habeas corpus isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. It basically just means that they either have to let him go or immediately put him in front of a judge.
And I would think they'd go with the latter option, considering the guy crashed a foreign warplane on American soil. I think that technically counts as an invasion. But alas, Venom is taken to freedom while taunting Snake Eyes and Quinn. And the comic ends with him on his way to Cobra headquarters and our heroes in jail.
So that was Red Eye to Miami, and here are my thoughts.
I like the structure of the comic much better than the last issue. We only drop in on the goings-on at G.I. Joe and Cobra headquarters once or twice, while the rest of the story is focused on our unlikely trio. And this deviation advanced the overarching plot of the comic series. Cobra Commander now knows, or at least suspects, that Destro is plotting against him, and the Cobra scheme has something to do with ink of all things. It was good to finally see Snake Eyes, Quinn and Venom escape South America, after they've been there for what seems like forever. And it's been a fun story. Though I did feel that some of the action was just tacked on for the sake of having more action, especially the fishing boat smugglers. Lastly, you'll notice that the story focuses on characters that have absolutely nothing to do with the toy line, as Venom nor Quinn were Hasbro characters. You know, it's nice to know that the comic wasn't completely straitjacketed by the toy line.
Well, see you next week, everybody.
All you need is